It's time now for an in-depth look at the global markets this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Kiwoom Securities. Mr. Yu, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
Wall Street was up overnight on hopes of an interest rate cut from the Fed. The S&P, the Dow, and the Nasdaq, all three touching record highs. What's the story today?
Yes, as you said, the U.S. stock market climbed quite nicely on back of Federal Reserve Chairman Powell's dovish statements. He said that he will respond appropriately, saying that in the testimony of House Financial Service Commission yesterday. Uncertainties such as trade dispute and global economic slowdown is putting pressure and threat to the U.S. economic growth rate. That's what Powell said. And that is taken as the potential for rate cut on the July 31st. And that has resulted into quite significant rise of the U.S. market. Dow rose 0.29%, Nasdaq jumped by 0.75%, and Russell 2000 rose 0.16%. Also, S&P 500 was up 0.45%. Now, the last Friday, the better-than-expected job report put pressure on the market globally as well as U.S. market because maybe the rate cut is not coming because of the better-than-expected economic growth rate, but that was not so as what Powell said. So clearly that is lifting up the equity market, expecting additional money supply coming through, additional liquidity coming through into the system. KOSPI recovered today quite nicely by 0.16%. KOSDAK was up also 1.53% after 1.8% rise yesterday. So clearly, heavily beaten down sectors are recovering because of the positive news coming from the U.S. side. As for Chinese market, they're showing flat number. Today it was up about 0.1% for Shanghai index, but Shenzhen index was down 0.15%. The main reason for that is because we're not sure whether Chinese government will be aggressively putting in additional liquidity into the system yet. They have not talked about possibility of rate cuts yet. So therefore, uncertainty still lingers on Chinese equity market.
Yeah, well, staying with the interest rate issue, it's a pretty quick turnaround there from the thinking we had last Friday, as you mentioned. What's Powell's thinking here, and what's the outlook now in terms of, for example, how many times the Fed might cut rates this year and by how much?
Sure. Powell expressed that Fed's overall monetary policy stands through the documentation before the hearing actually began. And if you look at the documentations, what he says is that despite the recent employment report that U.S.-China trade dispute truce that came through, uncertainty still remains quite significantly for U.S. economic outlook. And that uncertainty seems to be widening, according to Powell's statement. The sluggishness of major economic indicators in Europe as well as Asia continued, and this is putting pressure for the economic outlook for USA. And also, he said that in addition to economic outlook, the lower inflationary environment is here to stay, and he expects that to be lasting quite a long period of time. And because of that, he's saying that the rate cut is possible, we think. Also, he has said that whether or not the labor market is overheating, he has said that it cannot find any evidence in regards to the labor market being too hot. So therefore, possibility of rate cut is coming through further. So we think that rate cut on July 31st first is most likely because the rate rise that they did on December of last year was probably the wrongdoing. So one-time cut will be done probably end of this month. But after that, whether or not additional cut will be coming will be depending on how the economic growth takes its toll. And we do think that the economic slowdown will happen, but the size of that slowdown is not going to be too significant. We think that 2.5% growth rate is possible still. So therefore, if there's any additional rate cut, probably coming in December rather than any time sooner. So at most, 2 times rate cut we're expecting. Even with that, though, equity market should do well because of the additional liquidity is injected to the system.
Yeah, all eyes on July 31st. Now, here in Korea, the Minimum Wage Council has convened to set next year's minimum hourly pay. Labor started out asking for it to be raised to 10,000 won an hour, as President Moon pledged in his election campaign. Business, though, actually demanding a cut. What's going on with the minimum wage?
Right. As you said, the difference is too large between the labor union versus the management. The Minimum Wage Committee will be held in the afternoon again. The Park Jong-sik, the chairman of the Minimum Wage Committee, said that the meeting has to have quickly finished, and he would like to see some kind of settlement done on minimum wage for 2020 by July 11th. But the problem is the difference between the labor and management sector are too large, and it is very difficult to find a middle ground. Labor is asking minimum wage of 10,000, which is rising by 19.8% for next year, versus management is asking 8,000, which will be about 4.2% cut. The Minimum Wage Committee submitted a first amendment through the negotiations. So the labor union have submitted a lower version of 9,571, which is still 14.6% rise, versus management saying that 8,185 won, which is only 2% cut. But still, the gap is very large. So I'm not sure whether this is going to settle very quickly. The chairman wants to be settle this thing by July 11th, but we will see how this plays out. We think that with the economic growth rate slowing down very rapidly, the minimum wage rise by two-digit number will be probably unlikely. They will come into some kind of agreement that minimum wage will rise by single digit, but not that much.
Yeah, 19.8% might be a bridge too far this time. All right, Mr. Yu, that's where we'll have to leave it today. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.